Good morning, fourth graders. This is your social studies read aloud, follow along if you're choosing to do so. Today, for your social studies assignments, aside from remembering to pack and bring California Studies Weekly number 18, please put that in your backpack now, bring it to class for later today. We're also going to be reading from your reflections book, okay? So this is not something that we're going to do in class together. So I want you to make sure that you've read it at home before you come, because we're kind of kicking off a new unit. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing from my desktop. Should be coming up. Maybe. Let's see if I can move this around a little bit. Yikes, there's so much. Okay, let's get rid of that for a second. Okay, here we go. Let's open this up. Yay, here we go. All right, so you should have your reflections book open. This is page 190. It's lesson 1. Oh, that's going to be super annoying, but let's see if we can do this. This is Americans Moving West. Hang tight for a second. I'm going to share it in a different way. I'm going to turn this off for a second. Share screen. Share. I think this will do it. Nope. Well, that's okay. All right, let's be on page 90. I'm going to go ahead and start reading. We are moving into statehood. That means for California. So we're starting unit 3, which is called The Road to Statehood. And we'll be talking a little bit more about kind of the beginnings of it in class today. So if you want to go ahead as you flip through the pages, you'll get to read about some important people. There's also a map, which we're going to look at today, kind of what's happening at this time. We are in the 1790s and we're going to go through the early 1900s. All right, so California, here we come. You'll also notice there's actually an excerpt, a few excerpts from Valley of the Moon, which is kind of exciting. We've already passed this part in the story, so I'm not going to read that one, but it is a fun little read aloud that they actually start this unit with, because we know that's what's happening. All right, here we go. I'm on page 190. Americans Move West. So actually up at the top by lesson 1, we can see our timeline. So this is actually 1826. Jedediah Strong Smith goes to California, okay? And that's kind of where we're beginning. So imagine you are there. Up ahead, you catch sight of a beaver sliding into a stream. The year is 1830, and many of the animals in your area have already been trapped. Other trappers have told you about large numbers of beavers and otters in the unmapped lands beyond the Rocky Mountains. You know that to continue trapping animals and trading furs, you'll soon need to move west. But that land is part of Mexico. Okay, so heading west, you know that California, we are on the west coast. So here we go. Trappers head west. This is page 191. For nearly 25 years, California remained a part of Mexico. It also remained a hard place to reach. Sun-baked deserts and steep mountains separated it from other parts of Mexico and from the United States. For years, the only way for people from the United States to get to California was by ship. In the 1820s, however, trappers began to open up new overland routes through the West. They discovered these routes while looking for new places to trap beavers and other animals. At that time, beaver furs were used to make hats and other kinds of clothing. There was a high demand or desire for those products in the United States and in Europe. People were willing to pay a lot of money for them. So you can see down below, here's a picture. The caption says, "These trappers search a western river for fur-bearing animals," because the furs were in high demand. People would pay a lot of money for those. All right, up at the top. By the 1820s, so many beavers had been caught and killed that the supply of beaver fur in the United States was nearly used up. Supply is the amount of a good or service that is offered for sale. Because the demand was high and the supply was low, the prices that people were willing to pay for furs went up. Trappers from the United States began to travel farther and farther into what they called the frontier, looking for fur-bearing animals. The frontier was land beyond the settled parts of the United States. At the time, the borders of the United States reached as far west as the Rocky Mountains. However, few people lived in these far western lands. And let's read this fast fact. Trappers in the West would meet every year at a gathering called a rendezvous to sell their furs and buy needed supplies. Okay, so that's what they did. Let's go on. This is page 192, Jedediah Strong Smith. So we're going to meet another person. This is 1826 in Alta, California. Hey, that's a familiar name. As trappers from the United States moved west, they opened up new paths. One of these trailblazers was Jedediah Strong Smith. A trailblazer is someone who makes a new path for others to follow. Smith was a young man in his 20s and was eager to explore California. In August 1826, Smith led 17 men on a trapping expedition that left from the Great Salt Lake area in what is now Utah. They headed southwest and eventually reached the Colorado River. Then they made their way across the Mojave Desert. Indian guides helped the trappers, but travel was extremely difficult. So here you can see this is a painting, and you can see Jedediah Smith and fellow trailblazer James Kleiman. So here they are. They're headed west. Back up to the top. There was little shelter from the sun and little water. As Smith wrote, "I traveled over a country of complete barrens from morning until night without water." So when something is barren, that means it's very bare. That means there really isn't much there. In November, the men went through the San Bernardino Mountains and became the first people from the United States to travel by land to California. They arrived at Mission San Gabriel. Father Jose Bernardo Sanchez gave them food and a place to stay. Next, the trappers went south to San Diego, where they met Jose Maria Echeandia, the Mexican governor of California. Smith asked Echeandia for permission to explore California. Echeandia felt that Smith might be an American spy, so he ordered him to leave California. I'm on page 193. So here you can see this map. Here's a key up in the right-hand corner. So you'd have to find and follow the colored trails, but it tells you who these people were: Ewing Young, Sylvester and James Patty, Joseph Walker, and Jedediah Strong Smith. So you can see the different paths that they tried to take to get to California. Here's California over here on the west. Okay. Smith agreed to leave California, but before he did, he spent several months trapping in the San Joaquin Valley. Smith and his men survived freezing temperatures and rough lands as they crossed the Sierra Nevada and continued on to what is now Utah. They were the first people from the United States to cross those mountains. More trailblazers. After Smith's expedition, other people set out to find new land routes into California. James Ohio Patty and his father, Sylvester Patty, began an expedition in 1827. These trappers were no more welcome in California than Smith had been. They were put in jail for entering California without permission. James Patty was later freed, but his father died in jail. It's a pretty treacherous adventure trying to come west. Here we are on page 194. Let's read this caption. Walker Pass became the main route for many settlers traveling to California. So here are some more trailblazers. Trailblazers opened new paths to California for people from the United States to follow. Ewing Young's travels during the 1830s helped develop the old Spanish Trail from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Southern California. Joseph Redford Walker was the first American to cross the Sierra Nevada from the east. He found a pass, or an opening between mountains, that was later named for him. So this is the Walker Pass that was named for him. In 1850, James Beckwourth found a new pass through the northern Sierra Nevada. Today, this pass is called Beckwourth Pass. And let's read the summary. Oh, and just on the right-hand side, this is a little something more for you guys to read. Another trailblazer, James Beckwourth. They just referenced his path, the pass that was named after him through the northern Sierra Nevada. All right, let's read the summary. The demand for furs led trappers from the United States to blaze new trails to California. Settlers coming to California would later use the new trails. So they were called the trailblazers because they, of course, were the first. They blazed the trails and they made way so that others could follow. Okay? All right, you guys, go ahead and look back through this on your own if you'd like, and we'll be continuing to talk about our movement westward into California. I'm going to stop sharing. See you later, fourth graders.